As of right now, no real injuries to report of. It'll be probably similar to the last couple weeks where we got plenty of guys listed, but anticipate quite a few guys being able to play and available on Sunday. So could change in the next 24 hours, but as of right now, not a whole lot different. Nothing really to report from the injury standpoint. Came out relatively clean for whatever week it is now, so that part's good. There's a couple really, I thought, good performances to point out by guys. First and foremost, I thought our two gunners, Hardy and Avery, both were fantastic in coverage this week, which was really good to see. Hardy forced a penalty. We forced fair catches. We covered really well. That was good to see from that unit. And, we felt Trey's speed back out there, and Hardy's played really well. And then I think it was the second highest net in history of the Titans. So that's positive start there for us in trying to get our punt coverage locked down. So that was really good. Thought those guys did a nice job. I thought Stoney punted well. Offensively, I thought our left side played really well. I thought JC had a nice game. I thought Pete played well. Dan Brunskill in relief stepped up in a big way. I thought he had a really nice game filling in for Lloyd, and that's really critical for us to have that play at center. Obviously, our issues on the right side continue. We weren't good enough there at all. But running backs ran well. I thought Will had a nice game. There's some things that he can clean up for sure. But you just saw the efficiency. You saw him use his legs. There was some really positive outcomes from the game for him in that regard. And didn't put the ball in harm's way, was accurate and aggressive, but made some plays that we needed to make. And we just need more of it. And then we just need to eliminate our negative plays. That's really what killed us. I think we had like 11 negative plays between penalties and sacks. When you only have 51 or 53 or whatever it was, that makes it difficult. We overcame some, but we couldn't overcome all of them. And, ultimately that the swing of the game was that point in the third quarter where we went down and kicked the field goal. They get the kickoff return and score. We go 3 and out after a 1st and 10 sack. I don't know if it was 3 and out, but 1st and 10 sack. And now we're in 3rd and 15 again. And we punt the ball back and we pin them on the 5, and then they give up a 95-yard touchdown. And so really after the second possession, the second half, the game was, sort of out of reach for us, and we had to kind of claw back in to have any chance at all. So kind of a weird game in that regard with 8 possessions. The 9th possession was just the handoff at the end of the half, but 8 real possessions, and that's challenging. And we were in position to score on half of them, and if you're in position to score on half your possessions, you're doing all right. But again, it just wasn't enough for us to overcome and win the game. So.
Sacks. How many of those were product of Will holding on to the ball too long versus O-line breakdowns?
I'm hesitant to assign blame for sacks. I think I've said it before that sacks are sort of an offensive problem. It's not one person. It's guys getting open. It's guys being available. It's blocking a guy in front of you. It's running backs. It's linemen. It's the quarterback getting the ball out. So ultimately, 7 sacks is far too many. 2 of them were outside of the pocket. One was on a naked bootleg, if you will, and then the other one was on a scramble that, it wasn't really anybody open. You just throw it away. So there's 2 of them that you can knock down. But really, at the end of the day, have to do a better job protecting, blocking people in front of us. Have to do a better job getting the ball out when guys are available. And there's moments where Will could have done that. So it's a combination of all those things. And at the end of the day, it was too many against a front that I think is underrated. I think those guys do a good job, and we didn't do a good enough job in those moments. And everyone shares a little bit of blame for that.
On those lines of, when you're evaluating it, the clock in the head of the quarterback generally is 2.5, 3 seconds. Ball's got to be gone, or you've got to escape the pocket. For the most part, it seems like it's taken 3 to 4 seconds. A lot of times, yesterday.
Yeah.
Is that something that Will can improve, that can be fixed, or is that something that the line is going to have to just protect longer because he's a guy that needs more time to get the ball down the field?
I think it's certainly fixable. I think there's a couple of them for sure that you point out that, there's one sack in particular is, it's a 3rd and I think it was 3rd and 14 or 15. And we run a pretty standard sail concept, and the underneath throw is available, and the deeper throw is not. And it's just at that point in the game, and at 3rd and 14 or 15, take the completion. And what could happen there is, 1, you break a tackle, and you get a first down. 2, we get a good solid gain, and now we're in 4th and 3 or 4th and 2, and we can go for it in that spot, which we would like to do, particularly when the game score was what it was. And then the third one is that you don't take a hit. and it's one less hit on your body and one less hit for the line that has to absorb. And that was one that definitely should have just get the ball out of your hand. It's 3rd and 15. It's difficult as hell to convert those and take those yards and see what happens, as opposed to trying to force a ball down the field or hold on to it to wait and see. You're just usually not going to go very well at the end of the day. So, yeah, those are things that you can point out, and we will. Things where we can get better and play more efficiently and help ourselves get the ball out of our hands. So it's hopefully one less sack on the ledger for the game.
Do you
Probably
think
similar
those
question,
issues are
but I
with him?
wonder if-
seeing-
I'll come back, TD. Go ahead.
I mean, Will's sack percentage, I think, is about 3 times as high as Mason's. Is that maybe an indication, too, that there are times?
I think all the circumstances are probably a little bit different, different styles and different defenses. But the one thing you do see from Mason is that he's played enough football, and he knows that, and that's his style of play. On top of it, he gets the ball out of his hand. The flip side of that is that you may miss an explosive play or two because of it, and that's the give and take. And but Mason's played, he's been hit, he's been sacked, he's made those adjustments over the course of his career, and those are the things that Will in the early part of his career, we're trying to help him make better decisions with those things on when and where to be aggressive, when and where to hold the ball, and when and where a completion and getting the ball out of your hand is going to benefit everybody, including himself. So learning experiences for sure. Hard to correlate the two. They play a different style, and that's just sort of how you manage guys. Guys play different.
Do you think those issues? Because there was a play where you booted him out, and Josh Wiley was coming open on that deep crosser. He didn't throw the ball there, obviously, but is it not seeing it? Is it believing it? Like, from your perspective, what's the feedback that you get?
Yeah, that one you would like to see the ball go up to Josh in that particular play, and the way that play was set up for. It's sometimes it's easy to see from where we're sitting, and when he's on the field and he's rolling out, and he feels, reaction by the defense, and maybe he felt the corner was in a different position from where he's rolling out to versus what it looks like to us watching it on tape. So there's always usually reasoning behind it, but part of playing quarterback is sometimes you just gotta let it go. If you see it, it's just you can't overthink it. You just have to let it rip, and that would have been one that you'd like to see the ball go to Josh with a chance for probably an explosive play. But again, it's just you don't know what he's seeing at field level and how it feels when he comes out.
Do you see that as a step in the right direction, or is that because early in the season, right? Narratively, he's being reckless with the ball, he's putting the ball in harm's way, and in this game he doesn't do that. But maybe he's not pulling the trigger fast enough. Is that a different problem, or is that a step in the right direction?
Different. I mean, it's kind of a play-by-play thing because there's a couple plays that he pulled the trigger on that were tight window throws that were really, really nice throws, and that's the throws you got to make sometimes to play in the NFL to play quarterback, and that part was encouraging. So I think it's I think that play isn't necessarily an indicator of the whole picture. But I do think he did a really nice job in the game of improving that aspect. He was smart with the ball. It was aggressive when he needed to be, and that's one where you'd like to be aggressive in that situation, potentially to hit Josh. But you're not going to hit every one of them either, and so that part is okay. But I did see progress, and there's a lot of things I felt positive about coming out of that game with Will and where he was at. And again, not turning the ball over, not putting it in harm's way, being smart, running, sliding. All of those things were improvements.
You've tried a lot of different, like you said, but maybe perhaps difficult to compare. But just from your perspective, would you rather have Will how he was earlier, where you're having to tell him like, don't risk it there, that's not the situation, or the Will that was more efficient and then missed a couple of is that a positive?
Yes,
switch?
yeah, absolutely. You're gonna excuse me. You're going to miss throws and you're going to miss opportunities, and that's just how it goes. You're not going to hit every one of them. There's going to be guys that come open that your feet get taken away, your timing's off, and you got to move on. And just like, oh, if we just would have hit that. But what's happening in the pocket or how the coverage dictates or what the quarterback sees is not always going to be after the fact. It looks maybe more open than it was to him in the moment. So those aren't things that I spend too much time on. You just try to point it out and correct it and move on if there's something that can be corrected. But I saw growth in Will's play in this game. I really did. There was improvement. There's part of playing quarterback that, for the most part, can be pretty boring, and that's probably 80% of playing quarterback is doing the normal, mundane, ordinary things consistently well. And then there's a time and a place where your talent has to take over, and that's a big throw, the touchdown, for example. 2 or 3 of those throws, you saw Will's talent, his ability to fit the ball in a tight window accurately, taking off and running, using his feet, using his legs. Those things were all really good to see, and I feel like that's an improvement from where we were to where we are now. And we got another stiff challenge this week against the Vikings for him to show even more of that. And that's just the way it is. There's going to be give and take moments that are good, and there's going to be some that you got to keep coaching. And but I was pleased with what he showed in that game overall.
You've tried a lot of different options at right tackle to get it fixed.
Yeah.
You continue to try to look for answers there, and are you somewhat limited on what you can do?
Yeah, I mean, well, there's only so many people available. Obviously, we have Isaiah in the practice squad. We've been working to get up to speed, and I mean, there's we try to help that side as much as possible. Try not to put ourselves in harm's way too often, but when you get in these long down and distances that we were in, it allows them to rush a little more. But yeah, there's only so many things available to us at the moment, and we're going to have to use all of them, whatever that looks like.
Were you satisfied by the NFL's official explanation? I think that came after your press conference yesterday.
Do I look like I'd be satisfied? No.
Brian, when you look at your defense, where you've been number 1 in yards
Mm-hmm.
all season, where's the disconnect with the red zone?
Yeah, it's we've not been the last couple of weeks have not been as good as we're capable of being down there for various reasons. We're allowing touchdowns at a rate that is making it hard for us to be able to close out games or win games. And when you give up touchdowns and don't hold them to field goals, regardless of how they got down there, that's where it gets. We're not a high-scoring offense right now ourselves, and so it's hard to match score for score. And we got to be tighter down there. We got to do a better job all the way around. I think just the eyes, technique, all that stuff can improve. And when you give up touchdowns at the rate we have, it just makes it hard for us to stay in the games against some of these good offenses and teams that can score. So that part's got to get better. We're good in a lot of areas, which is how it feels like across our whole team. Like there's a lot of really positive things going on and things happening, but then sort of critical spots we're not where we need to be to win games, and we need more of that.
Is that where the injuries to Jadobi and L'Jarius really show up?
Yeah, I mean, we certainly wish those guys were playing for us right now. That was the hope. But I will say, I think Darrell Baker's done a really nice job. I think he really has. I think Jarvis is improving every week, and he's shown that he's capable of playing. So I wouldn't say that that's necessarily the reason. I think we just had the Detroit game in particular, just some bad eye discipline and man coverage. And in fairness, they've been put in some tough spots too. They've had bad field position on a number of drives that put them in with their kind of backs against the wall. They're trying to fight for a stop. So that's not lost on me either. I understand that they've been put in some difficult spots, but we just would like to see us be able to force in those difficult spots, at least force field goals and not give up touchdowns at the rate we have right now. And it's too much.
I know I touched on this a little bit yesterday with Kenneth in pass coverage. Is there anything that you guys can do to mask that or scheme that differently since the tape's kind of out there?
Yeah, I don't, that one wasn't on Kenneth.
I'm sorry, I meant just throughout the season. There have
Yeah.
instances where he's been.
No, I mean, there's only probably a handful of linebackers that are high level coverage defenders and play with the physicality and toughness that he plays with. It's hard to do all that great. And then sometimes the stuff in zone coverage and things get attributed to linebackers when it's not really there. It's zone coverage. They're just trying to be in a spot. The one it's probably unfair because it gets, he's got the running back in coverage down in the low red zone and he's running to cover the rail route and the ball goes up and he's just kind of half turns but just sort of runs through him. Like he's in position, he was where he's supposed to be and it looks bad because of the penalty. And then the one in the red zone that was a touchdown, interesting concept that they ran. Part of that was probably because he had quite a bit of time to survey the field, but really the way that route came across, that's really not Kenneth's coverage. He just ended up there the way the route came. I don't want to take up too much time with it, but Jarvis pushes to the hash where he's supposed to. The shallow came underneath and then jumped vertical, and there's really all the underneath coverage, and there was nobody back there. It's sort of the perfect awkward route for that coverage, and I don't know that it was necessarily intentional. I think it just ended up back there because he had time to survey the whole field. But there's things about Kenneth that are really good that we love about him, and everybody's got strengths and weaknesses, and we got to keep finding ways to help him if the pass coverage continues to be an issue. And some of that stuff looks worse on him than it really is. But I understand where the question comes from.
On that play that you just described, Jarvis has said that was something he hasn't seen before.
Yeah.
This is not the first time he said that. Like, at what point, like, what can you do to try to get him to that point where he's not seeing so many things he hasn't seen before?
It just comes with playing. It's just what it is for rookies. There's things that JC sees every week that he hasn't seen. It's the nature of it. There's good coaches in the league. There's good players in the league, and they find ways to stress what you do and how you do it. And there's going to be moments like that probably in every game for him. It's just things that he hasn't encountered yet, route concepts that he hasn't had to cover. Again, I don't get that route concept. In my opinion, I don't know if that was intentional or not. It just sort of ended up there, but it ended up in the soft spot of the coverage, and Jarvis was exactly where he was supposed to be, given the pattern of the route and where he was supposed to go. So he's right. It was something that he hadn't seen before, and I don't know that I've seen one that played out like that very often. So if they did it intentionally, unbelievable play match to coverage match. You know what I mean? That happens. That's kind of what happened on our touchdown early in the game. We had a phenomenal. We caught them in an awkward rotation. Calvin he's running on a half field nickel who's trying to disguise their Tampa coverage, and we just run past the nickel who's not used to playing in the half field, and that safety's dropping in from top down, so he's trying to look down, and we hit the play hit versus the coverage, and so those things happen.
What happened that caused the breakdown on the long kickoff return?
Julius Wood was covering. He inside releases. Guy gets washed, and then he ends up on the ground, and he takes out like three blockers or three of the coverage guys down there. So as he comes down inside, he gets sort of washed, and he falls, and he takes out like three guys on that side, and now there's a huge lane because no one can fit because they're on the ground. It was really just a unfortunate on the ground issue where he takes out our own people as he falls down, and that's I don't really have a lot of answers for that. That's just what happens in football sometimes.
The critical areas that are costing you in games, are they repeat offender kind of issues, or are you cleaning up some things and then something else pops up? How's that working through process, I guess?
Well, I mean, it's we've had some issues on the road with cadence and our silent work, and it's it's been on the right side primarily, and that's challenging. We had 3 or 4 false starts. So yeah, it's. We work it, we address it, we try to fix it, and they keep showing up, and so we got to figure out a way to make sure that hits home, because they're pretty critical and they're killer when your drives go from 2nd and 5 to 2nd and 12 or 2nd and 15, and now you're in a really tough spot. So it's not without. I mean, we've addressed them, we're working through them, but they got to be better.
Ryan, you talked yesterday about the play right before halftime and the swing that was, and
Yep.
that it's difficult for this team. It seems like every play you make is so critical, and so
Yeah.
if you get it taken away, it's deflating. How much of a fine line is there right now with this team, and how difficult is a situation like that where you make the play but yet it doesn't count for anything?
Yeah, I feel like that's happened a couple of times where we've made some kind of momentum changing plays, and we haven't been able to reap the benefits of them. And when they get taken away, that's killer, because we're fighting like crazy to make plays and make something happen and put ourselves in position. And when it gets taken away, it's difficult. It's just like anything. You feel it. You feel the effect of that. And we did a good job of bouncing back, and we came out and drove down the field and kicked the field goal. So it wasn't like it totally killed us, but it's a whole different feeling when you're up going into halftime on a play like that than when you're down. And those are just the way games go. And again, when you get an 8-possession game and the possessions are going to be limited and points are going to probably be limited, that when you get a defensive score, that goes a long way in helping you win a game. And to get it taken away was it hurt for sure.
Penalties on the offensive line, how much of them do you believe are maybe guys that are about to get beat and getting penalized so they don't get beat?
None really in the game. Leroy got called for that face mask. I'm not sure that it was a face mask, probably a hold, but he was laid off the snap, and he got beat late, and he's trying to recover. So those are technique things. Almost all those penalties are technique issues when you're talking about holds. Your hands are wrong, your feet are wrong, you're late off the ball, and those things are fixable. Those are things that we have to eliminate. I don't know that it's necessarily because of guys getting beat. Like Leroy got beat because the set wasn't good and the technique was poor, and that's how you get beat. And so we got to eliminate that more than anything else.
Anything new on Burks or Cheeto in terms of opening windows for them?
Burks probably not anytime soon. And Cheeto is getting closer. I'm not sure, not this week, I don't think, but soon, I think, is probably the best way to put
You
it.
found success with Will on the ground yesterday. Some in the design game. Did it take him proving to you that he could be responsible and protect himself to do more of that? What made you lean into using him as a runner more?
Yeah, I mean, that's one of Will's strengths. I mean, he's a good runner. He's a strong runner. That's part of the reason why when we talked about him being 100%, that's part of what it meant. Like, you have to be able to come play the position the way that you need to, and that's part of his skill set. That's what makes him unique, is his size and his speed, and those are things that can help our offense. And he did a really nice job on a couple of them, just getting the yards you can get and get down. But it puts a lot of stress on the defense when the quarterback's involved in the run game. And so if we can find ways to keep mixing that in, and I trust him to do it. He does a good job with it. He understands it. Those things are good for us. And I thought he did a nice job with the quarterback run game. There were some effective plays for us.
Snead still week to week, I guess?
Week to week, yeah.
Tony, I guess, big workload in a week that you didn't practice, for the previous game. Was it nice to kind of have Tajay back, take some of that workload off of your shoulders and help your body recover a little bit?
Yeah, just to spread the load around the team, just letting other guys contribute and, also getting back healthy, a little bit of both.
How tough is it, especially for a running back, kind of working through a foot injury that, limits your practice, but you're still expected to go out in the game and produce also?
It can be tough, but that's when you got to really lock in mentally and be intentional with everything you do. Hit the film really hard, study tape, and just try to make it as mental as possible when you can't physically go like that.
You find yourself scratching your head sometimes. I mean, this is a game where I think you guys averaged 6 yards a carry. Will only had 5 incompletions the entire day, yet you're still staring at 17 points.
We kind of know where we went wrong. At the end of the day, we gotta limit penalties. We got to make the most of every opportunity that we get. Anytime we get into the red zone, we got to cash it in and get 7 instead of 3. Had a call that didn't go our way. That was a killer in momentum. But, I wouldn't say the team is down on themselves or anything like that. We know once we, fix our mistakes and penalties and things like that, we can go out there and beat anybody.
You mentioned the red zone. You guys, I think, were 1 and 3 yesterday, 1 out of 3. What was going on in the red zone to keep you guys from getting into the end zone?
Some of it was just us, beating ourselves, not executing plays all the way right. And some of it was just, defensive calls. They may have had a better call on the play. And, just sometimes things don't swing your way.
How much confidence are you developing in that left side of your offensive line?
Our entire offensive line, they do a great job, especially working with Bill. He does a great job with those guys, getting them up front, getting them ready each week up front, and making sure whoever we got in the lineup, they're ready to go.
But those guys in particular are younger, though, I guess, is what I'm getting at. We got a rookie and a second-year guy. Do you see the experience and their time together, 8, 9, 10 weeks into the season, you're starting to pay off?
Definitely. Once you look back from week 1 to where we are now, just watching film, you see the improvements. You see the areas in their game that they're getting better, being more composed out there on the field, and, just letting the game come to them.
What was it like having, Will back in the huddle yesterday?
It was big for us, just having that energy that he brings into the huddle, the playmaking ability that he comes with, being able to take the deep shots, running the ball like he did the other day, and just making plays all over.
How did you feel about his poise throughout the course of it? I know that's something that Mason, you talked about, has brought to the huddle. How did Will handle those various situations?
Yeah, I definitely seen the improvement, from the last time he was in to where he was in this game, and the way he just talked in the huddle, the way he just let everything flow, and just it didn't feel rushed.
You've had so much success this season, Tony, on yards after contact. What's the key to grabbing those yards?
Just being physical, being relentless, and never giving up on the plays. We always have the play drawn up a certain way of how it's supposed to be blocked, how it's supposed to work out, but once the ball is snapped, 9 times out of 10 things go differently, and you have to adjust. So just never giving up on plays and just keep playing the whole play.
Talking to a lot of the guys, like the frustration level is beyond, imaginable. Excuse me, for you, like you're very low key, you seem very calm. How do you go about navigating, everything that's going on and still pushing forward?
Man, I take everything one day at a time. I go out there, we all go out there, give our all at practice, put in a good work, good weeks of work, and just give it to God. And, whatever happens, happens. Whatever is meant to happen is going to happen. So that helps me be at ease and just let things play out, take care of themselves.
Are you one that tries to point out the positive, find silver linings in these types of situations?
You have to. You also have to be able to make those hard conversations and talk about things that we aren't doing right. But at the same time, you can't be too down on yourself or too up. You got to try to stay neutral.
Yesterday, the screen game and the check down game didn't really seem to get going like we've seen at other times this season. What was kind of the key there, and what makes a good screen play work the way it's supposed to work?
Some of them were bad looks that we had. I think we ran like 2 of the screens into like a giant front where it's 3 bigs on one side, and that's not the ideal look for a screen. And it was just, I'm pretty sure they watch film. That's an area that we like to utilize, especially in getting back on track. So I feel like they did a good job, going out there and trying to stop it.
Tony, you guys haven't had a ton of critical plays or big plays yesterday or this year. Yesterday, you get the one before the half, and you talked about how big of a swing is that. How hard is that to one, when you're in a bit of a funk like this team, to make that play, and 2, if it goes against you, to overcome?
It's tough, but that's the day in the life of being a professional. Everything we do is tough. It's not easy. If it was easy, everybody would do it. And we got to be better. We got to find ways to fight out of those situations when things don't go our way, and make it right.